Finally, long anticipated. We've been trying to make this happen for a while. Shannon, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm really excited.
Yeah. I wanted to have you on for a few reasons. I think that your path to where you are today as a current BDR, your athletic career, kind of the road that you took playing in college and having a lot of success being a captain, and then also playing professional, and just how you've navigated retirement and this transition out of sport into the professional world, if we want to call it that. I think it's something that's going to relate. So I'm excited to get into your story and have you share a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. And I know a lot of people can definitely relate to it and see themselves in my shoes. So
let's jump in. So I know you're from the Boston area, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of how you got to college and how you got kind of like hooked and locked into the world of soccer. But yeah, where are you from? And I guess just the initial question is like, when did soccer become something that you knew was going to be a big part of your life, and that you were maybe on a different path than the other kids that you grew up with?
Mm-hmm. So I'm from Medway, Massachusetts. It's about 45 minutes outside of Boston. I grew up there with a big family. I have two older brothers and a younger sister, and my parents. And my dad played soccer in college. My mom played soccer and basketball in high school. But what was a big influence on me was my brothers playing. Like my brothers were playing club soccer and like getting involved with sports. And I think from the very beginning, I was never like, I'm going to play soccer. Like, I think I was trying like a lot of different sports growing up, like naturally as a kid. And my two main sports though were basketball and soccer. And then when it came around middle school, when my older brother started playing club soccer, I think that's when my parents were like, oh, like maybe we'll see like club soccer on like the girl side for Shannon and eventually my sister Isabel. And so I started club soccer around 5th grade, and I actually quit ballet for it. So I did like dance too.
Probably helped.
Like, say it again.
That it probably helped a little bit in the beginning,
Yeah.
some coordination and balance and all that.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like funny that like imagine if I didn't quit like ballet, like what I'd be doing today. But so then I think that's like was definitely a big step, like committing to club soccer, because that was outside of travel. And I was doing or outside of town soccer, but I was also doing travel basketball as well. So after I did that, like I was really lucky because I love my club soccer friends. And I would go back and forth between like whether I like soccer or basketball better. But I think gradually as I grew up, I started to become more serious about soccer. And like, especially with the success of my club team, because I love playing with them as well. And we were a great team. And also the influence of my club soccer I was really lucky because my coach growing up, like end of middle school to beginning of high school, his name was Chris Hamblin, and he's the Harvard women's soccer coach. So he like really knew about the college recruiting process and was really like a helpful hand in what to do, and really guided us in how to like start the college recruitment process. So I think that was super helpful and really helped me wrap my mind around, okay, this is a serious thing. And also I remember when I got to high school and I was still playing club soccer and doing town basketball, he like sat me down and was basically like, if you want to be committed to a like top level school, like you're gonna have to like put all this effort towards soccer. So I think that's when I was really like, okay, like let's go. Like, and it was like more the beginning of high school.
Yeah. So you were playing like when did you go all in on soccer and make that decision to not play basketball?
I think it was the end of my sophomore year of high school. But by that time, the recruiting process is so early. Like I committed to Syracuse between my sophomore and junior year of high school. So it was like a quick turnaround. But I had always been like really in on soccer, but it was more like I was still being able to like play basketball and do other things. So that was when I was like, okay, like I'll give up basketball, which really in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that serious.
Yeah. So there was never this like you were torn and should I go try to play college basketball? Like that was never real.
I feel like that did cross my mind. I had a coach in high school on the basketball side being like, you could go play like a lower level Division 1, but I just always knew I wanted to play soccer at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, you see it now. It's like it's a balance, right? Because everyone is trying to specialize in their sport. And I had a similar path where I was playing multiple sports. And then right around ninth, 10th grade was when it was like, hey, if you're going to go play Division 1, it's probably best to consider like really going hard at one sport and doing it full time. It's not an easy decision to make because there are people like your basketball coach that may be pulling you in one way, and everyone's got parents or different influences in their life that are trying to like steer them in the best path that they think for you, maybe for selfish reasons on their own kind of accord. But now you just see kids never having like that dual sport thing. Like, do you have any thoughts on like kids playing multiple sports and when is the right time to actually go all in on one sport? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I definitely think growing up, kids should like cast a wide net and play as many sports as they can, even in middle school, like beginning of high school. Like when I was going into like playing sports, even playing club soccer, I didn't have this end goal where I was like, I want to play D1. Like I just was doing because I loved it. And like that's like how it became gradually more serious. So I think I'm a big proponent of, and my parents were that same way. Like they weren't like, let's put her in sports and like she'll get a college scholarship. Like they just wanted me to have fun, and like it was something they enjoyed and like my brothers enjoyed. Like so I think that was I even played lacrosse as well. So I think that's something that I definitely valued growing up, like the influence of sports in my life. And then just growing up, it was just something that I loved and continue to love. And I still love like watching other sports as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think, or I guess when did you think like, okay, I'm going to play college soccer and I'm going to play like a high level of Division 1 soccer and I could be a professional? Like when did those dreams really become a reality? Was that before you went all in on soccer, or was that kind of right around that ninth, 10th grade period?
I think it was around like 8th, 9th, 10th grade, because I had that influence of that coach where he started talking about the recruitment process. And it really is super early that we start going to college showcases, and there's like not tents, chairs lined up at the games, like coaches watching you, and which is definitely nerve-wracking, especially as an 8th grader, where you have no idea really what path you're going to go on, what college.
So early. Yeah, you're so young.
Yeah. So I think that was nerve-wracking in a way, but it started the recruitment process early and really started to make me think of really early on. Like, I think if you're not trying to play like in college, like that decision's like delayed, like it's your junior, senior year of high school. But then those like questions kind of pop up earlier when you're deciding early on to pursue a sport in college. Like what kind of school do I want to go to, a city, like how far from home? It became real, like really fast. But I knew when I think it was just something that like all my club teammates were doing as well. And I was like, yeah, like I want to go to college and I want to continue to play soccer. And I think it wasn't necessarily like, I want to go like get a scholarship. It was like, I love doing this. Like, I want to keep doing this. I want to play at a higher level at college. So I think that was the motivation. And I think my club teammates really helped me too.
Nice. So how did you decide on Cuse?
So I decided on Cuse. Like I said, it was like my sophomore, junior year, and they saw me at a showcase. Actually, the coach that recruited me, her name's Kelly. They saw me at a showcase in February, and I went to an unofficial visit in February, March. And then I didn't hear from them for like 6 months. So I was like, definitely not going there. They definitely aren't interested anymore. And so I was talking to a few other coaches. Another school I thought of going to was Holy Cross, which is in the Worcester area, and it's a lower level D1 school. So I was thinking more about that. And then it was kind of picking back up in the spring. It was around the June, like Syracuse came back and was like, hey, we're like actually interested. And they saw another one of my games. So I was like, where were you the past 5 months? So it was really an up and down process, I think. Like going in and out of communication, and it's kind of nerve-wracking as well. And then I had a few other teammates, actually my best friend from college, we were club teammates, and she committed there before me. So I knew of familiar faces at Cuse. I think I visited again, and I really liked the coach, and they were just coming into the ACC, I'm pretty sure, or they were freshly new to the ACC, and I knew it was a great academic school, but as well as playing the top collegiate teams in soccer. So on the women's side, so I was like, I'm going for it. I really wanted to go there.
So awesome. Yeah, I think that was right when they moved, I guess, probably just out of the Big East and went into the ACC.
Yeah.
So now you're thinking about the schools you're going to be playing, and you're probably thinking, yeah, like I'm going to play, who are the big ones, like Chapel Hill, you're going to play
UNC,
State, Miami,
Duke,
all that.
yeah.
That's
Florida
awesome.
State.
Yeah. And how was the transition into college? Was that overwhelming? Did you fit right in? Did you play right away?
I think I was definitely nervous. As I said, I hadn't really ever lifted before. And then I came in early, like July, for kind of an early summer start program with a bunch of other girls in my class. And that helped me acclimate really well. I think getting that first month under my belt and then going into preseason. And so I think it was definitely a wake up call, just lifting wise, running wise, being like, oh shit, like I need to shape up basically. But I loved my strength coach and really started to build a relationship with him then. And so then I went into preseason more confident, but also I don't know what to expect as a freshman, but I earned my time and I ended up getting a starting role. And it was me and one other girl. We started every game that season. So I think it was something that was my favorite season at Syracuse. And I got to play with some girls one girl, her name's Courtney, but she's the Irish national team goalie right now and like going to the World Cup. So it was just so awesome to play with players like that. And I think it really made my freshman season super special, and why I look back on it so fondly, even though we still didn't win a ton of games. But
you're playing with like, you wake up one day you're in high school, the next day you're playing with like world-class talent. And yeah, it becomes more of like a job. I'm always curious because like there's always these like hard moments, right? There's early mornings, there's tough workouts. Like if you can like think about it, like if you were like really struggling and like trying to like motivate yourself, like was there anything that stuck out that motivated you or kept you going or like helped you through a hard workout? Like were there things that you envisioned? Was it just playing? Was it how did you like mentally get through some of the harder times and stay motivated?
Mm-hmm. I think my parents, I definitely leaned on. I remember a note my mom wrote me when I was doubting myself at the beginning of preseason, and she wrote me a note and she was like, you belong here, like you deserve to be here. So I think just little tidbits like that, leaning on my parents, leaning on my teammates, and knowing, and even looking at the other freshmen who were in the same boat as me trying to earn playing time, I think that was really influential. I think that's who I leaned on most. And also I just wanted to play, and I knew that I could hang with them, and I knew I belonged there. Obviously it's a learning curve. I'm a freshman, like I still need to gain a lot of experience, but in the back of my mind, kind of that affirmation that I belong here and that I can earn my time and do well. I think that's something that really kept me going.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the level of belief and confidence that it's easy to kind of like break that, I think, and maybe doubt yourself, but it sounds like you had good people in your life and just good support around you to just reaffirm what you probably believe to be true, which is like, I'm not here by accident, and I'm not just going to like roll over and fail. Like I'm here
Yeah.
for a reason. I belong here and like I can do this. And maybe an element of like wanting to prove to yourself or other people like to make that true.
hmm Yeah, I think that was definitely a big aspect of it, proving myself coming from high school and club, just saying like I can keep on that trajectory. Sorry.
I hate that word. I never say that word.
Yeah.
I avoid that word at all costs.
Yeah, but just keep going on that path. And as you were saying, like proving myself, knowing that I belong here and that, like you said, it's not a mistake that I can hang with these girls.
That's awesome. And then you went on to become captain, right?
Yeah, going into my senior year. So my senior year was kind of funky because of COVID, but it was right before COVID happened. I had a new coach change end of sophomore year, but she told me that I was going to be captain. So, which was really awesome. I think looking back on it, being captain during a COVID season was very unique. But had its own challenges, but it was something I'm really grateful for. And I think definitely taught me a lot of different ways to communicate. And I think just put me in some shoes that I always wanted to be in for my Syracuse team.
Yeah, I think there's this concept of like peacetime general and wartime general. And it's like, it's easy when things are going well, but then you're like, all right, I'm a captain. And now it's like, here's the hardest thing that basically everyone's had to deal with. And being in a college sport and athletic program at that time creates its own challenges outside of just the world that we're all were living in. So yeah, I'm curious how, like, what are the lessons that you think you learned, or like, what were some of the challenges? I guess just like speak to like having to lead a team when everyone's freaking out about their health, they're freaking out about their eligibility, they're freaking out about all these other things, school, social life, all these other things. Like you got thrown into the fire a little bit. So I guess, yeah, what was that experience like, having to kind of be the one that people were looking at around, like, how do we respond in this situation?
Yeah, I think it was definitely challenging. And at the end of the day, it was so much bigger than soccer. So like just being like, oh, we're like playing this game, but like there's so much going on in the world that's more important than this. So I think just from a standpoint of being grateful to be playing, I think once it was set in stone that our eligibility was safe and that we got these 6 extra games. And if we didn't have that season, then I would have never played with those Syracuse girls again, because I would have probably still have gone to St. John's. So I think from that standpoint, looking at it as like a gratefulness that we were able to play, that Syracuse and the ACC were able to find a way to get us to play when a lot of leagues weren't able to. Once our eligibility was set, that we weren't just wasting away. I think that really helped me be grounded in that standpoint. And definitely during that season, strained relationships happened just from in a perspective of socially, who can you hang out with when we're in this season. I think that really strained relationships on our team. So trying to navigate that is so unique. And like I said, really like bigger than the role of captain previously in any other season for collegiate sports. So just trying to manage that, keep my head, and really see the value of the games that we had in the season that I was able to have with my Syracuse teammates.
Yeah, I just think it's such a good experience. Like probably not fun at the time, but like as you advance in like your career in life, like it's never going to be perfect and easy. And just having that experience to be a leader and to just kind of like be an example of like, hey, we get to do this, like let's be grateful. And then also keeping in perspective of just, we are just playing a sport here and there's bigger things going on. Like there's going to be times perhaps where it's like, hey, this is just the job, or this is just like, you know, being able to delineate between the task at hand and like the bigger picture and like what's really important in life is a really hard balance that I don't think a lot of people get the experience to have to make that to distinguish between the two. So I just think that's probably, as much as it probably sucked at the time, is probably like something that you can take with you and like that's a very unique and intense leadership role to take on that will probably help you in the future.
I agree. Yeah. And it's definitely easier to feel that sort of gratefulness and appreciativeness in hindsight, because during it I was just kind of focused on like surviving the season and getting through it. And so I think it's definitely something in hindsight that I'm able to appreciate more.
Yeah. And then as you go forward, like we'll talk a little bit, like I want to hear about what your experience was like at St. John's and then playing overseas, but you start to, like, as you go through this process and see these things over and over again, you start to, like, I feel like, make it less of appreciating things in hindsight and appreciating things more like as they're happening, like even if they're tough, right? Like you're in a sales role now that's tough. You're in a time of your life that's like a transition and it's like a lot of new going on around you. But if you can pull from that, like, hey, in hindsight, it was really hard, but I learned from it. Like if you can appreciate some of that stuff kind of as it's happening, like this is hard, but it's going to be good for me, then it makes it easier to kind of navigate the challenges that you have moving forward. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think that's something just like totally in life, even beyond sports, just trying to be present in the moment. Like I think of even getting to see my grandparents this past weekend, like I know I'm going to look back on that time and like be fond of them and those memories. So I think it just, like I was saying, like even this past year when I was playing professional soccer, like I didn't want to go to practice a lot of days, but now I look back and I'm like, that was like so fun. I was living in a country abroad with, I was living abroad with these girls, and we were just like, it was like an extension of college basically. So I think being in the moment and trying to find the positives in it, although it's really tough at times, I think just being present is something I really want to try to get better at.
Yeah, me too. I think we all are trying. I think life kind of has a way of making that happen and making that growth kind of take place if you're aware of it and if you're like attentive and just in tune with like what experiences you've gone through and how that shaped you. But I just think sports makes it forces it on you, right? Like you have that experience in COVID, and then you go to a new school at St. John's, then you're go overseas, and like I feel the same way. Like I see my grandparents now and I'm like, this is gonna last forever. Like soak this in. And I think the more you can do that with everything that you experience, the better off you'll be. And I just think that sports has a really unique way of shaping that. And that's why I think athletes are uniquely positioned at times to just have an upper hand or just an advantage, right? It's like a gift that you've been given that allows you to just be successful or just have a perspective that maybe some people aren't as aware of it.
Yeah, I remember even one of my teammates in Lithuania, because she went to UCF and then she went into the working world and then she came back to professional soccer. So her first season was in Lithuania with me. She's now in Australia, but she was just mentioning how she was like, you don't get that high from sports and anything else, like that high of winning or like being with your teammates. So she was like really not taking that for granted, and her having that perspective of like not having it for a bit and then coming back to it. I just loved hearing her perspective on that. And it really changed how like every little moment in sports, even this past season, even when I wasn't really feeling it, but I remember like scoring a goal and I didn't think it was like the greatest goal. And then her like running over to me, I'm like, no, that's like an important moment. And that was like a fun moment. And like I can go play like adult league in Hoboken, but it's not the same. So I think that's something that I really like absorbed from her and really appreciate when she said that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it takes like it being taken away from you, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, to realize like how good it is, which, some people get that if they have an injury, but like, that's a super unique experience to like, I'm going to retire and then come back. I said that all the time. I think the first couple of times we talked to you were overseas and you're like, I don't know if I should keep playing. And I don't know if I said it verbatim, but it's like, keep playing. Like, please keep playing, because as much as sales and career have like, you can draw parallels. There's nothing like playing, and there's nothing like being with your teammates, and there's nothing like, you score a goal overseas in a professional game. It's like, if you freeze frame that moment, it's like you just scored a goal in professional soccer. Like this is the best thing ever. You've been thinking about this your whole life. Like it's really, really hard to replicate that. So to be able to appreciate it while it's happening, even if it takes a teammate to be like, hey, let's stop bitching about like practice. Like we get to practice today. It goes back to that like grateful like mindset that you had during COVID and at Syracuse. It's like, we get to do this today. This is so much better than anything else anyone else is doing on a Wednesday.
Yeah. On a random Wednesday. I think definitely changing the framing of it from, oh, I have to go to practice to I get to go to practice. I think even that change in mindset can be really powerful, especially for an athlete.
For sure. So I know you did a year at St. John's. What was, I guess, I'm curious how that was and how that compared to Cuse, and then your time overseas. I'm just curious to know, like, I know it was maybe, I'm curious about how it was to like be there and then like make that decision to retire, because I know that I don't think we ever talked about like how you got to that decision.
Yeah. So because of COVID, I got an extra year of eligibility. So I knew I didn't want to take it at Q. So I started looking elsewhere, and I went in the portal, and actually St. John's, his name's Ian Stone, my head coach. But before I committed to Syracuse the first time when I was a sophomore, I was looking at St. John's, and I actually went to the campus. There are photos of me and my sister, who's there now, there around my sophomore year, and I was like, no, I don't want to go here. And then it's kind of fun.
Why? It's just too like small. I know it's
I just think I was like comparing it to Cuse, and even to this day, like I felt so connected to the Syracuse campus, and I honestly didn't feel that connected to the St. John's campus. But I also think my classes were all online. I was only going to the arena, or not arena, the like athletic facilities, which was on like a corner of campus. So I was just kind of like in and out, and then I would like go take my classes at home. I would like go into the city and out. So I didn't feel as connected to the campus, but also I was at Syracuse for 4 years, so it's easy to say that. But I like absolutely loved my experience at St. John's, like soccer wise. All the girls were so welcoming. But back to when I was deciding this was like November, December, after my final season at Cuse. And then I decided to opt out for the spring from Syracuse, and I was training on my own. And then I committed to St. John's in the spring of that year. And so then my sister and I went to we had that final season that following fall. So it was really cool being able to do that with my sister, even training with my sister. I know we like grew up training and like running together, but then to be like, we're going to the same school, it was really, really a cool experience. And like I was saying before, just talking about like being in the present, like I'll never get that experience with my sister again. So from her being there to the girls being so welcoming, like I love the coaches, and then us having such an awesome season. Like that was, I think, really a high in my career. When I look back on my soccer career, that was definitely, besides I think also my club experience I loved prior to college. But when I think of my college soccer experience, I definitely think of St. John's. Like that was where I had the most fun and was the happiest.
Wow. That's cool to hear. Because you like work so hard to get to Cuse. You spent 4 years there. You're the captain. Obviously, COVID throws a wrench in it, but then you get this like kind of this like gift of like, hey, go play with your sister, and had such an awesome experience. Just cool that it worked out that way, and you can finish on such a such a high note.
Yeah, I think also something that was so special about it was being able to go to a postseason at Syracuse due to the nature of the ACC and us not doing particularly well in our conference. And it was also the toughest conference in the country, but we never got a postseason. There was never even a thought of a postseason. Like end of October, it was like, okay, we're done. And to be able to like do well. We lost in the Big East championship to Georgetown. I hate Georgetown, but and then we qualified for the NCAAs and went to the Sweet 16. Like I haven't felt like that high of being in like a postseason this matter since high school, which is so crazy because my club team was so like we always like made it to like a postseason. My high school team did, and then to get to college, it was just something I hadn't felt in so long, and like it was just such a great feeling, and I loved all those girls. So definitely truly love my St. John's experience, and also a big reason why I'm in New York today. Being from Boston, I never really pictured myself coming to New York or living in New York, but it really made me love the city.
Awesome. And your sister's still there?
Yeah, so she has one extra season because of COVID. So coming up on our last season. So she's entering where the same time frame when I was going into St. John's.
Nice. Yeah, it's just funny how it all plays out. Could have never ever drawn that path up, but it seemed to work out and put you in a good position now. And now you're in the city, the best city in the world, in my opinion. And however long you're there, enjoy it. It's the best. So then you go overseas and you went to Lithuania, right? So you were in Lithuania for 1 year?
Yeah, for 10 months.
And I know when we first met, you were thinking about going to a different country. I guess, how did it all play out with finishing up your season there and then ultimately deciding that it was time maybe to stop playing?
Yeah, so I went over to Lithuania beginning of February 2022, and I signed for a 10-month contract, and I was there with like 5 other American girls. Actually, there was one Canadian, and we would always group her as American. She didn't
she's basically American.
Yeah. So I was there for 10 months, and a big reason why we went over there, like the appeal to going to Lithuania, because it's pretty random, was Champions League, because they're the best team in Lithuania. They get a bid into Champions League, so it's a big appeal to go over there and be able to play in one of the biggest tournaments in the world. So we end up losing first round, but that was the big appeal of going there. But besides a Champions League, the overall Lithuanian league, I know going into it wasn't going to be that high of a level, but we were obviously there for that specific reason of Champions League. But it was kind of just draining as a season, like going from the high of St. John's to then playing not great quality soccer. And the other American girls I was with, I loved playing with them, and they were really great soccer players. But just to be able to kind of like stoop down to that level, like you think going from college to professional, like it's going to be like a straight shot up, like higher speed of play, like stronger players, and it just wasn't at all.
Really? So you think your St. John's team could have beat your Lithuanian team?
Yeah, 100%.
Interesting.
So I think that was just disappointing in itself. And I think if I kept with it, like if I played another season, I think I would go to a better team and then like maybe build up. But like, I just don't know what that path would be, or like how many years would be until I'm like on like a good level team, you know? And
so what is the goal of like when you go to Lithuania for someone in your shoes? Are they trying to just have an experience and live in Lithuania and play professional soccer, although it's not better in your perspective? Are they trying to get to a different team in Europe? Like what are they trying to do?
I think it honestly depends. I think Gintra, where I was, is a good starter club, but when I got there, a lot of people who had been there for so long left, like a lot of the older girls. So we like instantly became like the older girls and like playing with younger Lithuanian girls, which it just wasn't what we were expecting when we came in there. So I think prior to this past year, like it was a good starter club, and a lot of girls like can get their foot in the door, and you say that they have Champions League experience, say that they've played abroad, and then jump to a better team. So I think that's one way that like, or one reason people may sign there. Like a girl I know from one of my old like club teammates, but she was a bit older. She started at Lithuania too, and then she jumped to Iceland, and now she's in France playing, and I think they just got promoted to the first league. So I think it's definitely a good starter club if you want to like jump and say you have professional experience. I think from my standpoint, when I was going into it, I knew I always wanted to play abroad because I saw a lot of my teammates do it even at a young age from my freshman year. And so I knew it's something I always wanted to do. I really like traveling, and I never got the chance to study abroad too. So I think that was an appeal of it as well, of like trying professional soccer. I think if I never tried it, I always would have been like, what if? But I got such a cool cultural experience on top of being able to say I played in Champions League, even though looking back on it, like if I could be in my shoes, like deciding to go to Lithuania, knowing the quality of soccer it was, like, while it'd be so painful to be like, yes, like I'm gonna like go through that again, like I wouldn't change it because I got so many cool like experiences and saw so many different parts of the world. So it just kind of like a give and take. The soccer part of it was disappointing, and I think it's taken me a little bit to heal that relationship because I just was so like, I was just so done with soccer. Like I just didn't want to go to practice anymore. Like, and going from like the high of St. John's that I had, like when I talk about it, I'm so like happy and look back on it so fondly, and like it was so fun. And then going to that and just like soccer just felt like a burden, like, and I think it was just the quality of playing. So I think that was kind of my experience, that there were a lot of ups and downs. But I got to see a lot of cool things and go to a lot of different places in the world on our off time. So
yeah, the personal cultural experience is definitely worth it and awesome, but it sounds like it put a bit of a bad taste in your mouth on the soccer side. Did you think about going to another country, or was it just like, I'm done with soccer and it's not worth it?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a decision I thought about for like months on end, especially when I knew my contract was coming up in October. I remember talking to you in September, and I still wasn't sure like what I was going to do, because I thought of like playing another season and then, oh, if I just play that spring and then I'm done. But at that point, like I was saying, I think when I knew I wanted to retire, when I was just like, I'm not enjoying this, like this isn't the reason. Like my parents put me in club soccer, I like started to play soccer, started to play sports. Like when I had that feeling that it just became more like a burden and I just didn't want to go to practice anymore, I think that's when I was like, this is indication, like I'm going to stop. And then I also like the thought crossed, like say I go to another team and I just continue to hate it and just continue to like ruin my relationship with soccer. Obviously I will never know because I didn't do that. Like it could have been the complete opposite. And I think also just the like being away from home was super, and being so far away, like being a long distance relationship. I'm really a homebody. I love my family. I love my friends. I think that's also a big mental toll. So I think there were a lot of different factors that played into it. But then looking back on it, even because before I went to Lithuania, I put my name in the NWSL and I didn't get drafted. But I think even now, like, I don't know if that's what I would even want, even being home playing soccer and having that aspect of like, I'm home, I'm with my family and friends. I don't even know if that's right now in my mind, like that doesn't really appeal to me. So I think that's when I was just like, yeah, I think I'm done.
It's a hard thing to admit.
Yeah.
Well, you went through, it sounds like, you're obviously very thoughtful about it and kind of weighed all these different things. Like on one hand, you're in Lithuania and it's like, yeah, you could say you're with your teammates, but at the end of the day, these are random girls that you just met and you're in a foreign country by yourself. So it's a hard thing, but yeah, you have all these other options, but it's not uncommon, I feel like, for athletes to get to a point where it's like, you kind of like see, you like stack the cards in front of you and you're like, I think this is it.
Yeah.
How did your family and like the close people in your life react to it?
Mhm. They were, well, voice crack, but my, like all throughout college, my entire life, I've always been so grateful to have a great relationship with my parents. So I really appreciate their advice, and even my dad, especially with soccer, like I've always leaned on him, and even he was like, I think it's time, but
Yeah.
I loved hearing his perspective, but he like gave me like you had a great cultural experience, like you went over here, like Lithuania means a lot to my family, like my great grandfather was born there, like
Oh, cool.
my so that was kind of like the draw to it as well. And he's a big traveler, like he backpacked Europe, like I think a big reason why I love to travel as well. And he's always both my parents have always been my number one fan, like when we were in like St. John's, like traveling everywhere, they were at every single game.
Nice.
um they were always like driving me for travel, like all around the country for our club soccer games. So I think just hearing them and hearing their perspective and being like, maybe like if this is what you're deciding, like that we support you. But then my mom would be like, oh, maybe like you do one season. I'm like, Mom, I can't do that right now. But
I'm looking for you to give me the approval that it's okay to retire. Do I need to
yeah.
make this clear to you?
Yeah. So I like definitely appreciated their advice. But if I decided to play another season, my parents would be like, yeah, go for it. Like they just want it. Although they would love to have me home, like they would never hold me back from doing something like that.
Yeah. Well, you've had a good support system. It's been a like consistent thread throughout the entire journey. So that's,
Mm.
it's a hard realization to have, but I feel like when you have it, there's varying degrees of like certainty around it, but it feels like you were in a pretty good place mentally of like, this is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was definitely a gradual process, not something overnight where I was just like, I'm done playing. And I think it was something I definitely had to come to terms with. And I think it definitely hit me hardest when I was looking for a job and nothing was sticking. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, maybe I should have played like this past spring. Maybe I should have played a season. So I think there's definitely highs and lows, but right now I feel content with my decision. I don't know what that's going to look like a year from now, being out of
Mhm.
sports, being like, dang, like maybe I did play another season, but I won't know that. But right now I feel content in my decision. And right now, like I don't want to wake up and go to practice. And I think I keep repeating that, but that's when I knew. I was just like, I think I'm done.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And it's not uncommon. I talk to a lot of athletes that have a sense of relief and it's like, oh, I don't need to worry about that anymore or do that anymore. So maybe a little bit of that coming in, but how has it been? Because now I know you're a few months into a career in tech in a sales role. So
Mhm.
kind of a shifting of the gears. Like I said, there's some parallels that you can draw, obviously, to the sports world. And I'm sure you're pulling on some of that experience in a few different ways. But I guess, how has it been for you? And if you could keep in mind, like, if there's somebody out there that's just retired or thinking about retiring, that's maybe thinking about getting into this role, um, like, yeah, what's the experience been and what can they expect?
Mhm. Yeah, during college, I always was a good student. So I always emphasize school. So I think going into a job and even having jobs in the past, like I've always kind of kept those qualities that have been instilled in me from playing collegiate sports and growing up collegiate sports and in the classroom. So I think that has translated really well. And I think just to be able to like dive into something like coming off of retiring from a sport and honestly like starting to build my resume outside of a like soccer resume, because I've always like had that. I have the professional soccer experience, but then like didn't have any crazy internships with soccer. Like I was always a beverage cart girl on a golf course.
Nice.
Um, so I think the appeal to start building my career, and I think that was really a draw to it. And as I was saying, like diving into that and putting my energy into something. And I think a lot of the qualities that I have from sports, whether it's competitiveness, like wanting to prove myself and being the best at something, especially coming into a new company, and just like I said, even at the beginning, like when I was a freshman, being like, I belong here, like I'm smart enough to be here, and I know I have a lot of experience to go, but I think that's something that I'm excited about. But with anything, obviously there's highs and lows, and still going to be doubts of, oh, like, is this the right decision? But as I kept saying, having a good support system, and honestly, the appeal of like making money now and being in a situation where like I can support myself and do the things that I want to do, I think I'm excited for as well.
Yeah, I think you're allowed to say that. A lot of people like dance around like I would like to like put my energy into trying to make money to be able to have whatever freedom or whatever that means for them. Like
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I think it's actually encouraged in the sales role, to be able to articulate that, but I think that's okay to like use that as a motivator to, and it doesn't need to be so you could buy a Porsche. It could be for anything. So
Yeah.
um, I know you're hitting the ground running. Is there anything that you wish you knew before you started this role, or that's jumped out as a surprise or something that you didn't expect?
Honestly, no. I think coming into this role, what really helped me was just talking to other people that are already in the role. And in this role, in the BDR role, a lot of the people have unique paths to get where they are now. So like a lot of them are former athletes, or one of my friends at work, he's like was formerly a bartender. So a lot of people bring unique characteristics and differences to excel in that role. So I really loved hearing other people's workflows and what they do, because everyone's different. So I think that's something that really helped me, was just talking to other people and hearing their expertise and their experience. So I think if that was a word of advice to people going into that role, like lean on those people.
Yeah. Yeah, you see a lot of athletes, but you also see people that were teachers or bartenders
Mm-hmm.
or had some type of like hospitality role. Like there's a lot of different ways into the industry. And the
Mm-hmm.
good thing is that the SDR role allows for that. And then, you can use the SDR role as a springboard into whatever you want to do, whether it be within tech or something else. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's always cool to kind of hear everyone's journey and figure out how they're using their past experience to excel in the role.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just to finish up, like any other advice for athletes that are transitioning out of sport or getting started in a tech sales role, like anything that you wish you knew? I know it's similar to the last question, but like anything else that you would add?
I actually read in a book recently that I think was really profound to me, was The Strength of Weak Ties. So I think like how I connected with you, like I didn't know who you were, and now this connection has totally transformed my life and the career path I'm on. So like the strength of weak ties, like people who you might not know might be like your next opportunity or your next like path in life. So I think especially in the sports world, like staying connected with people, I think has like, it's like a kind of spin on like, it's not about like what you know, but who you know, like, because obviously everyone has heard that, but like staying, like even being connected in the sports world has like brought this new opportunity for me. So I think something that I read that in a book recently, and it, really like opened my eyes. I'm like, that's so true.
Yeah, for sure. And, kudos to you too. Like if you have that mindset, it's like you also need to be willing to walk through the door and be vulnerable. Like if somebody reaches out to you with like a weird opportunity, it's like, oh, maybe that is worth a 10-minute phone call. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Mhm.
It could kind of change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think too, just being open-minded, even when I was going to Lithuania, I knew no one there. It was in obviously a foreign country. I just spoke to the coach on the phone. Their website looked legit. My agent was setting me up, so, and I just went for it. So I think sometimes, obviously it was a safe option. Like I wouldn't have gone there if it was unsafe, but just being open-minded and just really seeing what life throws at you.
Yeah.
You could end up in Lithuania.
Which would be a good thing. I would love to
Yeah.
go. All right, cool. Well, we can wrap it up there. I thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you. I admire your perspective. Your journey has been really like just your mindset through it all. It's just really impressive. And I think that, you know, you're destined for really great things. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate AthleteMade and seriously all that you guys are doing for athletes. And I know there's so many people in my shoes who are like thinking about that transition or going through it and maybe think that they don't have a valuable resource like this or that they're doing it alone. So just what you're doing is so important. There's so many people like me out there that need something like this. So just really, really appreciate you guys.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you saying that. We're going to keep chugging along and see how many athletes we can help.
Yeah, I can help.
All right, cool. Well, thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Ryan.